The assessment hall of the Galactic Academy stretched wider than any building Jiho had ever seen. 50 desks stood in perfect rows, each one occupied by a candidate from somewhere across the known galaxy. The ceiling above them showed the stars outside, real and moving as the station orbited the neutral moon of Terminus 7. Jiho pulled at the collar of his new uniform. It still felt strange after 3 days of wearing it. Back home on the mining colony, nobody wore anything this formal. His hands were calloused from years of working on broken machinery, and his hair was cut short and uneven because his sister Dahyun had done it the night before he left. He looked around at the other candidates. Most of them looked like they belonged here. The Etherans sat perfectly still, their crystalline bodies catching the light and throwing rainbow patterns across the walls. The Drexen candidates had polished their scales until they gleamed. Even the other humans in the room looked more prepared than Jiho felt. "Attention, candidates," a voice clicked from the front of the hall. Instructor Velmara stood at the podium. She was Quillian, which meant she looked like a very large insect standing on 2 legs. Her forearms moved independently as she gestured, and her mandibles clicked when she spoke. Jiho had learned not to stare, but it was still strange to see. "Today you will complete the final assessment," Velmara announced. Her voice came through a translator that made it sound calm and neutral. 50 of you sit here today. Only 12 will be accepted into the Strategic Command Program. This test will determine who those 12 are. A murmur went through the crowd. Jiho felt his stomach tighten. He had traveled 3 months to get here. His parents had saved for 5 years to afford the transport. If he failed today, all of that would be wasted. "The test is simple," Velmara continued. She held up a small object about the size of a human fist. It was made of dark metal and covered in strange patterns that seemed to shift when Jiho looked at them. "This is a Vendari puzzle box. Each of you will receive one. Your task is to open it." The hall went completely silent. "You have 4 hours," Velmara said. "The puzzle responds to logic, pattern recognition, spatial awareness, and cognitive flexibility. There are no instructions. There is no single correct method. Some of you may not solve it at all. That is acceptable. We are measuring your approach as much as your success." She began walking down the aisles, placing a puzzle box on each desk. The candidates watched her progress with intense focus. When she reached the Ethran named Hiron, the crystalline being immediately closed her eyes and entered a meditative state. The Drexen called Tovan pulled out a datapad and began making notes before even touching his box. Velmara approached Jiho's desk and set down his puzzle box. Up close, Jiho could see that the patterns on its surface were actually tiny grooves and ridges, impossibly complex. The metal felt warm, almost alive. "You may begin," Velmara announced as she placed the final box. Around the room, candidates immediately started working. Some examined their boxes carefully, turning them over and over. Others closed their eyes, presumably using senses that humans did not have. A few began pressing and prodding at various points on the surface. Jiho picked up his box. It was heavier than it looked. He turned it over in his hands, feeling the weight shift inside. There was definitely something moving in there, some kind of mechanism. He shook it gently. A soft rattling sound came from within. He tilted the box at different angles, feeling how the internal weight moved. There was a pattern to it, he realized. The thing inside was not just loose. It was connected to the shell somehow, moving along tracks or channels. Without really thinking about it, Jiho pressed his thumb against one of the ridges. It gave slightly. He pressed another spot with his other hand. Something clicked inside the box. His fingers moved almost on their own now, finding points on the surface that felt right. Press here, slide there, twist this section. The box began to change in his hands. Panels that had seemed solid now moved. Sections rotated. The patterns on the surface shifted and realigned. Jiho was not thinking about what he was doing. He was just doing it. His hands knew where to go, what to touch, how much pressure to apply. It felt like taking apart one of the mining machines back home, finding the broken piece by feel rather than by looking at diagrams. A soft chime filled the air. Jiho blinked. The box in his hands was open. Inside, a small glowing core pulsed with blue light. The energy field around it was stable, no longer locked behind the puzzle's mechanisms. He looked up. Everyone in the hall was staring at him. Velmara stood frozen in the aisle, her forearms held motionless. Her mandibles had stopped clicking. For a long moment, nobody moved. Jiho looked at the open box, then at the other candidates. Most of them were still on their first attempts, carefully examining their boxes. He glanced at the clock on the wall. 90 seconds had passed since Velmara had said they could begin. Jiho said into the silence. Should I wait, or is there a second part? The instructor's mandibles clicked rapidly, which Jiho's orientation guide had said meant surprise or confusion. Velmara walked quickly to his desk, her footsteps loud in the quiet hall. She picked up the opened box and examined it closely. Her hands moved over it, checking the mechanisms, studying the exposed core. Her translator was silent, but Jiho could hear the soft clicks and chirps of her actual voice underneath. Explain your methodology, Velmara said finally. Her translated voice was sharp. Jiho looked at the box, then at his hands, then back at the instructor. I felt where the pieces wanted to go. You felt where they wanted to go, Velmara repeated. The translator made it impossible to tell if she was mocking him or genuinely asking. Yeah, Jiho said. Like I could sense how the inside worked. So I just moved the outside to match. Velmara stared at him with her compound eyes. Jiho could see his own reflection repeated hundreds of times in their faceted surface. Remain seated, the instructor said. Do not touch anything else. She walked back to the front of the hall, still carrying his opened box. She set it on her podium where everyone could see it. Then she turned to address the room. Continue your work, she announced. You still have 3 hours and 58 minutes. But nobody was working anymore. Every candidate in the room was staring at Jiho, then at the opened box on the podium, then back at Jiho. Huron's crystalline face was doing something strange, flickering between different colors in a way Jiho had never seen an Ethrin do before. Tovin's scales had darkened, which meant anger or suspicion in Drexen body language. Jiho sank lower in his seat. He had thought solving the puzzle would be good. Now he was not so sure. The human girl sitting 3 rows over, someone named Nari from the medical track, caught his eye and gave him a small thumbs up. At least someone did not think he had done something wrong. Velmara was speaking rapidly into a communication device, her mandibles clicking in a way that the translator did not even try to interpret. She kept glancing at Jiho while she talked. Jiho looked down at his empty hands. He had just wanted to do well on the test. Now he felt like he had broken some rule he did not know existed. The clock on the wall kept counting. 3 hours and 57 minutes remaining. Around him, the other candidates slowly returned to their puzzle boxes, but he could feel them watching him from the corners of their eyes. Something told Jiho that the real test was only just beginning. The faculty meeting room was designed to accommodate 17 different species, which meant it looked strange to everyone. The chairs were adjustable, the atmosphere was carefully balanced, and the lighting shifted between spectrums that different eyes could see. Right now that lighting was set to red, which meant the meeting was closed to students and staff. Instructor Velmara stood at the center console, replaying the security footage for the 5th time. The other instructors watched in silence as the human named Jiho picked up the puzzle box, shook it, and then solved it in what appeared to be a series of random movements. 90 seconds, said Instructor Bragan. He was Korthan, which meant half his head was covered in cybernetic implants that blinked with data. I have run the analysis 17 times. There is no pattern that suggests memorization. His movements appear spontaneous. Then he cheated some other way, said Professor Kelvin, a human who taught advanced mathematics. Even she looked skeptical. Maybe he has an implant we did not detect. He was scanned thoroughly, Velmara clicked. 3 times. Once at registration, once before the test, and once immediately after. He has no implants, no hidden technology, no chemical enhancements. He is completely natural. Director Tavesh materialized in the center of the room. As a luminar, he had no solid body, just a form made of organized light. His presence filled the space with a soft glow. Then what are we looking at? He asked. Nobody had an answer. Bragan pulled up more data on the main display. I analyzed his brain activity during the test. He shows elevated neural activity in the right parietal lobe, which handles spatial processing. But the speed of his problem-solving exceeds anything in our database for any known species. Could it be a human trait we did not know about? Asked another instructor, a Drexen named Korva. Unlikely, Professor Kelvin said. I am human. I have studied human cognition for 40 years. We are good at pattern recognition and adaptive thinking, but not like this. What he did should not be possible. Director Tavesh's light form pulsed thoughtfully. We need more information. Run a full background investigation. I want to know everything about this candidate. Where he grew up, what he studied, who trained him, and someone needs to interview him directly. Velmara's mandibles clicked in what might have been reluctance. I can conduct the interview. No, Tavesh said. You are too close to the situation. Professor Mireille will do it. She specializes in xenoanthropology and cross-species psychology. If there is something unusual about this human, she will find it. The meeting continued for another hour, but it kept circling back to the same question. How did he do it? 3 days later, Jiho sat in a small interview room across from Professor Mirai. She was human too, which made him feel slightly less nervous. She had kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a simple style. She reminded him of his aunt back home. I am not here to accuse you of anything, Mirai said gently. We just want to understand what happened. Can you walk me through your background? Jiho shifted in his seat. There's not much to tell. I grew up on Mining Colony 7. It is a small place, maybe 3,000 people. My parents worked the extraction facilities. So did everyone else. What kind of education did you receive? Basic stuff. Reading, math, science. We had a teacher who came from Earth every few years. Mostly we learned from old data files and whatever the adults could teach us. Mireille made notes on her datapad. The records show you applied to the academy with no formal recommendations. Your test scores were good but not exceptional. Yet here you are. What made you think you could get in? Jiho shrugged. I like solving problems. Back home things broke down all the time. The mining equipment, the life support systems, the water recyclers, someone had to fix them. I was good at it. Good at fixing machines, Mireille repeated. Tell me more about that. I do not know. I just understood how they worked. Even if I had never seen that specific machine before, I could look at it and figure out what was wrong. My parents hated it because I took everything apart when I was young, but I always put it back together. Mireille leaned forward. Did you study engineering? Mechanics? Any formal training? No, like I said, we did not have much formal anything. I just practiced. Whenever something broke, I volunteered to look at it. And you could just see how to fix it? Jiho thought about how to explain it. Not exactly see, more like feel, like the shape of the problem would become clear in my head and then the solution was just there. I know that sounds strange. It does, Mireille admitted. But strange is not the same as impossible. She pulled out a small object from her bag. It was another puzzle box, different from the one in the test. Would you be willing to try another one? Just so we can understand your process better? Jiho took the box. This one was made of a lighter material, and the patterns on its surface were different. He turned it over in his hands, getting a feel for its weight and balance. There was something inside, multiple somethings all moving independently. His fingers found the first point almost immediately. Press here, slide this, rotate that section. The box began to unfold in his hands like a mechanical flower. 3 minutes later, it was open. Mireille was recording everything with her datapad. One more, she said, and handed him a third box. This one was harder. The mechanisms inside were more complex, and the surface gave him fewer clues. But after 6 minutes of working, he had it open too. How do you do this? Mireille asked. Her voice was filled with genuine curiosity, not accusation. I honestly do not know, Jiho said. I look at it, I feel it, and my hands just know what to do. It is like when you walk. You do not think about every step. Your body just does it. Mireille sat back and studied him for a long moment. Jiho, I need to tell you something. What you are doing is not normal. Not for humans, not for any species we know. Your spatial reasoning and intuitive problem-solving are operating at a level we have never documented before. Jiho felt his stomach sink. So I am going to be expelled? No, Mireille said quickly. No, nothing like that. But you need to understand that this is going to attract attention. A lot of attention. Some people will be fascinated. Others will be suspicious. And some will be afraid. Afraid of me. Jiho could not keep the disbelief out of his voice. I am just a kid from a mining colony. You are a human who can do things that ancient species with centuries of education cannot do, Mireille said. That scares people. It suggests that maybe they do not understand humans as well as they thought they did, and people do not like being wrong about fundamental things. The door to the interview room opened and Instructor Bragan entered, his cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on Jiho. "Director Tavesh wants to see him," he said to Mirai. "Now?" Mirai asked. "Now." Jiho followed them through the corridors of the academy. Students stopped and stared as he passed. Word had spread fast. Everyone knew about the human who had solved the impossible puzzle. Some students looked impressed. Others looked angry. Jiho saw Tovan, the Drexen from the assessment, watching him with dark scales and narrowed eyes. That was definitely not a friendly look. Director Tavish's office was at the top of the central tower. The walls were transparent, showing the stars and the planet below. Tavesh himself floated in the center of the room, his light form casting soft shadows. "Jiho," the director said. His voice had no accent, no gender, just calm authority. "Do you know why the Vendari created the puzzle box?" Jiho shook his head. "They were testing for a specific type of mind," Tavesh explained. "One that could see order within chaos, one that could find solutions that pure logic could not reach. In 3,000 years, only 47 beings have ever solved it in a single session. The fastest time was 3 hours and 12 minutes. "I did not know that," Jiho said quietly. "You solved it in 90 seconds, Tavesh continued. "This has caused considerable debate among the faculty. Some believe you cheated. Others believe you represent a security risk. A few believe you are proof that humanity has cognitive advantages we have not accounted for." "What do you believe?" Jiho asked. Tavesh's light form pulsed in a way that might have been a smile. "I believe you are interesting. And I believe the galaxy needs interesting. You will remain in the program, Jiho. But understand that you will be watched closely, not because we distrust you, but because we need to understand what you represent." Jiho nodded slowly. "I just wanted to learn." "Good," Tavesh said. "Because you are about to teach us all something we did not know we needed to learn." The message from Earth arrived 6 days after Jiho's interview with Director Tavesh. It carried Dr. Wanshik, a cognitive neuroscience researcher who had spent his entire career studying how human brains worked. He looked tired when he stepped off the transport, carrying a single bag and a data case that probably held his entire life's work. Professor Mirai met him at the docking bay. "Thank you for coming so quickly," she said. "When the Galactic Academy calls and says they need to understand something about human cognition, you come." Wanshik replied. He was older, maybe 60, with deep lines around his eyes from years of staring at brain scans. "Besides, what you described in your message is impossible. I had to see it for myself." They walked together through the academy corridors toward the research wing. Students from a dozen species moved past them, heading to classes or study groups. A few humans noticed Wanshik and whispered to each other. "How much do you know about Jiho's performance?" Mirai asked. "Only what you told me. He solved a puzzle that should take hours in about 90 seconds. No implants, no enhancements, no prior knowledge of the solution. Just raw cognitive ability." Wanshik shook his head. "It should not be possible." "But it happened," Mirai said. "We have footage. We have brain scans. We have multiple witnesses and 3 additional puzzles he solved while we watched. It is real." Wanshik was quiet for a moment. "Then we need to figure out how. Because if one human can do this, it changes everything we think we know about our own species." The research wing was busy with faculty members running tests and analyzing data. Instructor Bragan was already there, his cybernetic implants blinking as he processed information from multiple screens at once. "Dr. Wanshik," Bragan said without turning around, "I have compiled all the neural data from Jiho's tests. It is available on Terminal 7. Wanshik set down his bag and immediately went to the terminal. For the next 3 hours, he said nothing. He just studied the data, occasionally making notes or pulling up comparison files from his own research. Finally, he leaned back and rubbed his eyes. "This is remarkable," he said softly. "What did you find?" Mirai asked. "Do you know what made humans successful on Earth?" Wanshik asked. "It was not strength. Dozens of predators were stronger. It was not speed. We were slower than most prey animals. It was not armor or weapons or venom. It was adaptability." He pulled up an image of a human brain on the main display. "Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We chased prey until it collapsed from exhaustion, but we also made tools, built shelters, solved novel problems with limited resources. Our brains developed shortcuts, ways to process information that bypassed pure logic." "What kind of shortcuts?" Bragan asked. "Pattern recognition, Spatial reasoning. Intuitive cognition. We see a problem and sometimes the solution just appears in our minds, fully formed without having to think through every step. Wonshik highlighted sections of Jiho's brain scan. Most species think sequentially. A leads to B leads to C. But humans can jump from A to C without consciously processing B. We call it intuition, but it is actually a form of parallel processing that happens below conscious awareness. All humans can do this? Velamara asked from the doorway. She had been listening. To varying degrees, yes, Wonshik said. But Jiho is exceptional even among humans. His spatial reasoning is off the charts. His ability to perceive complex systems as unified wholes is remarkable. He is not just smart. He thinks differently. This is concerning, said a new voice. Everyone turned to see Ambassador Krell enter the research wing. He was Vaxar, an amphibious species with smooth skin that shifted through different colors depending on his mood. Right now he was showing dark purple, which meant suspicion or distrust. Ambassador, Director Tavesh said, materializing beside him. This is a closed research session. And this is a matter of galactic security, Krell replied. His voice was wet and bubbling through his translator. You are discussing cognitive advantages that one species may have over others. That affects all of us. We are discussing how one student solved a puzzle, Mirai said carefully. You are discussing how humans may have inherent advantages that give them unfair benefits in this institution, Krell corrected. This academy is supposed to operate on merit. If humans have biological advantages, then the competition is not fair. Wonshik stood up slowly. With respect, Ambassador, every species has advantages. The Etherans can process light frequencies we cannot see. The Quillians have forearms and can multitask beyond human capability. The Drexen have perfect spatial memory. Should we disqualify all of them too? Those are known advantages, Krell said. They are accounted for in the assessment protocols. Human cognitive shortcuts are not documented. They give you an unfair edge. Or they are just different ways of thinking, Wonshik replied. Not better, different. The argument continued for another hour. Krell demanded that humans be restricted from certain programs until proper assessments could be developed. Other ambassadors joined the discussion remotely, each representing species that had their own concerns about humanity's rapid advancement. Humans had only been in space for 70 years. Already they were competing at the highest levels of galactic society. Already they were solving problems that ancient civilizations found difficult. It made people nervous. While the adults argued, Jiho sat alone in the academy gardens. It was a quiet place, designed to feel like nature even though they were on a space station. Trees from a dozen worlds grew under artificial sunlight. Water flowed through channels in the floor. Nari found him there. She was human too, studying to be a medical technician. They had grown up on the same colony, though she was 2 years older. Heard you are famous now, Nari said, sitting down beside him. More like infamous, Jiho replied. Half the station thinks I am a cheater. The other half thinks I am some kind of threat. What do you think? Jiho was quiet for a moment. I think I just wanted to learn. Now I am some kind of test case for whether humans deserve to be here. We do deserve to be here, Nari said firmly. We earned our spots just like everyone else, did we though? Jiho asked. If I have some kind of advantage, some way of thinking that other species do not have, is that fair? Is it fair that the Etherans can see in ultraviolet? Is it fair that the Korthan can process data faster with their implants? Everyone has advantages, Jiho. That is what makes the galaxy interesting. Before Jiho could respond, his communication device chimed. It was a message from home. His sister Dahyun had sent a video. He played it. Dahyun's face appeared on the small screen, grease-stained and grinning. She was in the maintenance bay back on the colony. Hey, little brother, she said. Heard you are causing trouble up there. Good. The galaxy needs some trouble. Listen, some reporters came by asking about you, wanting to know what makes you special. You know what I told them? She leaned closer to the camera. I told them you are not special. You are just Jiho, and if they think you are weird, they should meet the rest of us. The video cut off. Jiho felt himself smile for the first time in days. She is right, Nari said. You are not some freak. You are just human. And humans are all a little weird. That is our whole thing. Back in the research wing, Dr. Wonshik was presenting his final conclusions to the assembled faculty and ambassadors. I have reviewed all the data, he said. Jiho is exceptional, but he is not impossible. He represents the upper end of human cognitive ability in certain areas, just as some humans are exceptional athletes or exceptional artists. He is exceptionally good at spatial reasoning and intuitive problem-solving. So you admit humans have advantages, Krell said. I admit humans have diversity, Wanshik corrected. Some of us are good at one thing, some at another. We are not uniformly superior. We are variably capable depending on the task. Director Tavesh's light form pulsed thoughtfully. Perhaps that is the lesson here. We have been treating cognitive ability as a single measurable thing, but intelligence comes in many forms. The Vendari puzzle box tests for one specific type of thinking. Jiho happens to excel at that type. In another test, another species might dominate. So what do you propose? Asked one of the remote ambassadors. We reform our assessment protocols, Tavesh said. We acknowledge cognitive diversity across all species. We stop trying to make everyone fit the same model. And we allow Jiho to continue his studies because he earned his place here just like everyone else. The vote took 3 hours. In the end, it passed. Jiho could stay. But the debate about humanity's place in the galaxy was far from over. That night, Jiho received a message from Ambassador Minho, Earth's chief diplomatic envoy. It was short and simple: be yourself. That is all we ask. The galaxy is learning that humans are different. Show them that different is not something to fear. Jiho looked out at the stars through his dormitory window. Somewhere out there was Earth, the planet he had never seen but somehow called home. And somewhere out there were millions of other humans, all weird in their own ways, all figuring out how to exist in a galaxy that had not expected them. He thought about his sister's words. You are just Jiho, maybe that was enough. The announcement came during breakfast in the common hall. Jiho was eating alone, as he had been for most of the past week. The other candidates still did not know what to make of him. Some avoided him entirely. Others stared from across the room like he was some kind of exhibit. The wall screens flickered to life, showing Director Tavish's light form. Attention all strategic command candidates, his voice echoed through the hall. Due to recent events, an additional assessment has been scheduled. Candidate Jiho will undergo a specialized tactical simulation designed by Fleet Commander Thane. The simulation will be broadcast live to the Academy community. It will take place tomorrow at 1400 hours. The hall erupted in whispers. Jiho felt dozens of eyes turned toward him. Hierin, the Ethrin who had been meditating during the puzzle box test, approached his table. Her crystalline body caught the light, making her look like she was made of pure diamond.
May I sit?
She asked. Jiho nodded, surprised. Fleet Commander Thane is legendary, Hierin said quietly. He has commanded fleets in 3 major conflicts. If he designed this test, it will not be easy. Is that supposed to make me feel better? Jiho asked. Hierin's face flickered through several colors which Jiho had learned meant she was choosing her words carefully. I do not know if you cheated or not, but I watched you solve that puzzle. Your hands moved like they knew the answer before your mind did. That is not normal. But perhaps not normal is exactly what the galaxy needs right now. She stood and walked away before Jiho could respond. The next morning, Professor Mirai found Jiho in the library. Are you ready? She asked. No, Jiho admitted. I have never done a tactical simulation before. Back home, the closest thing we had to strategy was figuring out which mining shaft to work first. Then let me give you some advice, Mirai said. Everyone expects you to fail. Fleet Commander Thane designs his simulations to be unwinnable. He is not testing whether you can win, he is testing how you handle losing. That is even worse, Jiho muttered. Maybe, Mirai said. But remember what Dr. Wanshik said. You think differently. Do not try to solve this like a Drexen warrior would, or like an Ethrin strategist would. Solve it like Jiho would. At 1400 hours, Jiho stood outside the simulation chamber. Through the observation windows, he could see the entire academy watching. Students, faculty, even some off-world observers had tuned in remotely. This was not just a test anymore. It was a spectacle. Fleet Commander Thane waited inside. He was Drexen, tall and covered in dark green scales that marked him as a veteran of many battles. His eyes were sharp and intelligent. Candidate Jiho, he said. His voice was deep and carried natural authority. Do you know why you are here? To prove I did not cheat? Jiho guessed. To prove you are capable, Thane corrected. The puzzle box tested one skill. This will test something different. Leadership. Strategy. the ability to make decisions under pressure. He gestured to the simulation pod. Inside you will command a small defensive fleet. Your objective is to protect a colony from an attacking force. You will have limited resources and limited time. Do you understand? Yes, sir, Jiho said, then begin. Jiho climbed into the pod. The interior was dark until the simulation activated. Then suddenly he was standing on the bridge of a small cruiser. Through the view screen he could see space. Behind him 3 light cruisers and 12 fighters hung in formation. Further back, a small colony station orbited a rocky planet. A tactical display appeared in front of him. 15 enemy capital ships were approaching, heavily armed and moving in formation. They would reach firing range in 12 minutes. Jiho looked at his own forces. 3 cruisers and 12 fighters against 15 capital ships. The numbers were not good. In fact, they were terrible. He heard Thane's voice through a speaker. The simulation has begun. Show us what you can do. In the observation room, hundreds of beings watched. Tavon, the Drexen candidate, stood with his arms crossed. He will fail in minutes, he predicted. No tactical training, no experience. He will panic, but Jiho did not panic. He studied the tactical display carefully. The enemy ships were moving in a tight formation, which meant they were coordinating through some kind of communication network. The colony station was positioned near an asteroid field. His own ships were fast but lightly armed. He could not win a direct fight. That much was obvious, so he would not try. All ships, Jiho said into the command channel, break formation and scatter into the asteroid field. I want you moving in random patterns. Do not engage the enemy directly, sir. One of the ship captains responded, confused. Just do it, Jiho said. Trust me, his ship scattered. The enemy fleet, seeing the defenders flee, advanced faster. They maintained their tight formation, expecting an easy victory. Jiho watched them come. He was counting seconds in his head, calculating trajectories. When the enemy fleet reached the edge of the asteroid field, he gave his next order. All fighters target the enemy flagship's communication array. Concentrated fire. Now. The 12 fighters broke from their hiding spots among the asteroids and struck as one. They were too small and fast for the capital ships to target effectively. Their combined fire destroyed the enemy flagship's main communication antenna. Immediately, the enemy formation began to waver. Without their command network, the ships could not coordinate as effectively. They began operating independently, each captain making their own decisions. Now hit their engines while they are confused, Jiho ordered, one ship at a time. Fast attacks, then retreat into the asteroids. His cruisers struck like predators picking off separated prey. They would emerge from cover, fire on a single enemy ship's propulsion systems, then disappear back into the asteroids before the enemy could respond effectively. In the observation room, the crowd had gone silent. Even Thane was watching with an expression that might have been respect. Aaron leaned toward Professor Mirai. He is not trying to destroy them. He is trying to disable them. And he is using the asteroid field like a weapon, Mirai added, forcing them to navigate carefully while he moves freely. Jiho was not thinking about tactics or strategy in any formal sense. He was thinking about how prey animals on Earth survived against predators. Stay mobile. Use the environment. Never fight fair when you can fight smart. 8 minutes into the simulation, he had disabled 4 enemy ships and destroyed 2 more. But he had lost 1 cruiser and 4 fighters. The colony was still intact, but his forces were getting tired. Then Jiho noticed something in the simulation's code. There was a random number generator affecting enemy ship behavior. Every simulation had one to make battles feel more realistic. But patterns in randomness could be predicted if you watched long enough. He studied the enemy flagship's movements for 30 seconds. Then he smiled. All remaining forces, full retreat toward the colony station, he ordered. Sir, we will be trapped against the station, one captain protested. I know. Do it anyway. His ships pulled back, drawing the remaining enemy fleet after them. The enemy, sensing victory, pursued aggressively. They left the asteroid field and moved into open space. Jiho waited until they were committed. Then he changed his objective. New mission, he announced. We are not trying to win. We are trying to survive until reinforcements arrive. All ships, defensive formation around the colony. Make them work for every meter. In the observation room, Thane's scales shifted to a lighter color, which meant surprise or approval. He identified the true win condition. The fleet commander said quietly, The simulation is designed to be unwinnable if you try to destroy the enemy. But if you change your goal to survival, reinforcements arrive after 20 minutes. Jiho had figured this out by analyzing the simulation's behavior patterns. It was not about defeating the enemy. It was about lasting long enough. His remaining ships formed a tight defensive sphere around the colony. They took heavy damage, but they also made the enemy pay for every approach. Fighters kamikaze into enemy shields. Cruisers sacrificed themselves to protect the station. When the 20-minute mark hit, new ships appeared on the tactical display. A full battle fleet arrived through faster-than-light travel, summoned by the colony's distress signal. The simulation ended. Final score: colony survived. 3 enemy ships destroyed, 7 disabled, 5 retreated. Jiho's losses: 2 cruisers and 8 fighters. Jiho climbed out of the pod, his hands shaking from adrenaline. The observation room was completely silent. Then Fleet Commander Thane began to clap. His large, scaled hands made a sound like rocks striking together. Slowly, others joined in. Even Tovan, after a long moment, nodded in grudging respect. Thane approached Jiho. "I have trained warriors for 6 decades, he said. I have seen hundreds attempt this simulation. Most fail within 10 minutes. A few last 15. You not only survived the full 20 minutes, you understood the simulation's purpose. This was not a test of winning. It was a test of adaptation." "I just did what made sense," Jiho said. "Exactly," Thane replied. "You did not try to fight like a Drexen. You fought like a human, using mobility, creativity, and the willingness to change objectives when the situation demanded it." "That is true strategic thinking." Director Tavesh materialized beside them. "The adjudicator has reviewed all data from this assessment. Its verdict is that Jiho's performance was legitimate and demonstrates." 3 weeks after the simulation test, life at the academy began to feel almost normal. Jiho attended classes in strategy, xenopolitics, and fleet management alongside the other accepted candidates. The 12 students who had made it into the Strategic Command program came from 8 different species. Jiho was one of 3 humans, along with Suman and a man named Taejin who was much older and had served in the merchant fleet for years. The controversy had not disappeared, but it had shifted. Instead of arguing whether humans belonged in the program, the galactic community was now debating what human cognitive abilities meant for the future. Dr. Wanshik's research had been published across academic networks, sparking discussions on 100 worlds. Jiho was walking to his afternoon class when he received a message. "Report to Director Tavesh's office immediately." He changed direction, wondering what he had done wrong this time. But when he arrived, Tavesh was not alone. An ancient luminar floated beside him, its light form dimmer and more complex than Tavesh's, with patterns that seemed to hold depth and age. "Jiho, this is Elder Corvin," Tavesh introduced. "He is one of the Academy's founders. He has been observing events with great interest." The Elder's voice was soft like wind through grass. "Sit, young human. I wish to tell you a story." Jiho sat, confused but obedient. 5,000 years ago, the Vendari were the greatest civilization in this galaxy, Corvin began. They could manipulate space and time in ways we still do not fully understand. But they were also dying. Their species had become so specialized, so perfectly adapted to their way of thinking, that they could no longer adapt to change. So they created the puzzle box. "To test other species?" Jiho asked. "To find other species," Corvin corrected. "Species that could think in ways the Vendari no longer could. Species that could see order within chaos. Species that retained the flexibility the Vendari had lost through millennia of optimization." The Elder's light pulsed gently. "Your species evolved in chaos, Jiho. Earth was harsh, unpredictable. It demanded constant adaptation. Most species evolved on gentler worlds. They became efficient, powerful, specialized. But you remained generalists. You retained the ability to perceive patterns that pure logic cannot find. Is that why I could solve the puzzle?" Jiho asked. "That is why your entire species represents something the galaxy needs," Corvin said. "We have been at peace for so long that we have forgotten how to handle genuine novelty. We have optimized ourselves for a stable universe. But the universe is not stable. It changes. And when it changes, specialists struggle while generalists adapt." Director Tavesh added, "This is why we are reforming our assessment protocols. Not just for humans, but for all species. We have been measuring intelligence as if it were a single trait. But intelligence comes in many forms. What you can do, Jiho, is one form. What Hiren can do is another. What Tovan can do is a third. All are valuable. So the Academy is changing because of me? Jiho felt overwhelmed by the thought. The Academy is changing because you forced us to see what we had been missing, Tavesh said. That is your real gift. Not solving puzzles quickly, making us question our assumptions. Later that day, Jiho attended his strategy class. Professor Korva, the Drexen instructor, was discussing supply chain management for extended military campaigns. It was technical and detailed, exactly the kind of sequential thinking that Jiho found challenging. Hiren sat beside him, her crystalline form refracting the classroom lights. You look confused, she whispered. I am, Jiho admitted. I can solve puzzles by feeling, but trying to memorize supply calculations is killing me. Hiren made a sound like wind chimes, which was Ethran laughter. And I can calculate supply needs in my head instantly, but I could never solve that puzzle box. We all have strengths and weaknesses. That makes me feel better, Jiho said. It should, Hiren replied. You taught me something important. I spent years trying to be the best at everything. But watching you, I realized that being exceptional at one thing is enough. We are supposed to work together, not compete in everything. After class, Jiho found Captain Tajan waiting for him in the corridor. Tajan was in his 40s with gray in his hair and the weathered look of someone who had spent decades in space. Can we talk? Tajan asked. They walked to the observation deck, a quiet place where students went to think. Through the massive windows, stars stretched in all directions. I knew your grandfather, Tajan said suddenly. He served on the merchant ship I commanded 20 years ago. Good man. Practical. Could fix anything with spare parts and determination. I never met him, Jiho said. He died before I was born. He would have been proud of you, Tajan continued. But he would also tell you not to let this define you. You are more than the human who solved the puzzle. Remember that. I am trying, Jiho said. But everyone keeps reminding me of it. Then remind them of something else, Tajan suggested. Show them you can be ordinary too. Take a class you are bad at. Make friends who do not care about your test scores. Live a life beyond being exceptional. It was good advice, and Jiho decided to follow it. The next morning, Representative Minho arrived at the Academy for a diplomatic meeting. He was Earth's chief envoy to the Galactic Council, and his presence meant something important was happening. The meeting was held in the Grand Assembly Hall, with representatives from 20 species attending either in person or via hologram. Jiho watched from the student gallery, along with hundreds of other students. We are here to discuss the new assessment protocols, Minho announced. The Academy has proposed reforms that acknowledge cognitive diversity across all species. These reforms will change how we evaluate candidates, how we design tests, and how we structure learning. Ambassador Krell, the Vaxar who had opposed Jiho's admission, spoke up. These changes are being driven by one species, by human exceptionalism. I remain concerned that this is not about fairness but about human advancement. Then let me be clear, Minho said firmly. We are not asking for special treatment. We are asking that all species be judged fairly, which means accepting that fair does not always look the same. The Etherans process information differently than the Quillians. The Drexen think differently than the Korthan. And yes, humans think differently than all of them. That is not a problem. That is diversity. Diversity can also mean inequality, Krell argued. Only if you define equality as sameness, Minho replied. True equality means giving everyone the opportunity to contribute their unique strengths. The Academy has been trying to make everyone fit the same mold. These reforms will allow each species to contribute in their own way. The debate continued for hours, but in the end, the reforms passed. The assessment protocols would be rewritten to account for different types of intelligence, different learning styles, different ways of processing information. That evening, Jiho sat in the common hall with his small group of friends. Hiren was there, along with Tovan, Nari, Suman, and a few others who had slowly accepted him over the past weeks. I still do not understand how you did it, Tovan admitted. He had been hostile at first, but watching Jiho struggle with calculations and logistics had made him more sympathetic. The puzzle, I mean. Honestly, I do not either, Jiho said. My hands just knew what to do. That is what makes you dangerous, Tovan said, but he was smiling. You do not even know your own capabilities. None of us fully know our capabilities, Hiren added. That is what we are here to learn. Suman, who had been quiet as always, spoke up. I think there are more humans like Jiho. We just hide it better. We learn to pretend we think like everyone else because it is easier than explaining that we see the world differently. You should stop hiding, Nari said. The galaxy is learning that different is not bad. It is just different. Jiho looked around at his friends, these beings from different worlds with different ways of thinking, all gathered together because they wanted to learn and grow. This was what the galaxy could be, he realized. Not uniform, not all thinking the same way, but diverse and stronger because of it. Later, alone in his room, Jiho recorded a message to send home. His sister Dahyun would get it in about a week given the communication delays. Hey Dahyun, he said to the recording device. Things are getting better here. I am still weird, but everyone is starting to understand that weird is okay. I am learning a lot, mostly about how much I do not know. The galaxy is bigger and stranger than we ever imagined back on the colony, but I think I am starting to find my place in it. He paused, thinking about how to end the message. Thanks for reminding me that I am just Jiho. Turns out that is exactly who I needed to be. The message sent, Jiho turned off the lights and looked out at the stars through his window. Earth was out there somewhere. A small blue world that had produced a species of strange, adaptable, chaotic thinkers who did not quite fit any mold. The galaxy had spent thousands of years optimizing itself, making everything efficient and orderly. But maybe what it needed was not more order. Maybe what it needed was a little bit of that human chaos. The willingness to try new things, to think differently, to see patterns where others saw only noise. Jiho did not know what the future would bring, but for the first time since arriving at the academy, he felt like he belonged. Not because he was exceptional,